Never believe that a few caring people can't change the world, for indeed, that's all who ever had. That amazing and wise saying was said by Margaret Mead. In this very moment, I can be that person. You can be that person. We can be that person. Homelessness is an issue that affects over 555,000 people nationwide. 35% of those people sheltered, 65% of those people unsheltered. Homelessness is an issue that affects people in America when not enough people care. That homeless person you see on the street, it could be me, it could be you, it could be a loved one. Now, to end homelessness in America as a whole, the United States government says it would cost roughly $20 billion. Jeff Bezos could end homelessness in America and still be the richest man alive. No, not world hunger, but homelessness in America. Well, I guess where I'm going with this speech is, I'm going to show you how homelessness affects people around the country and what we can do to make that change. Now, you're probably sitting here asking yourself, what is the issue and what contributes to homelessness as a whole? But before we get into all that, let me ask you something. When you drive past a homeless person, do you instantly think, oh yeah, they must have done drugs? Or maybe they're just too lazy to get a job? Well, if you have, don't worry, because you aren't the only one. But let's see if that prediction is correct. Well, according to the National Homelessness Organization, the main reason for homelessness is simply poverty. Homelessness and poverty are inextricably linked. People below the poverty line are frequently unable to pay for housing, food, childcare, healthcare, and education. And difficult decisions must be made when limited resources cover only some of those necessities. Often, it will come down to housing, which absorbs a high proportion of income tax that must be dropped. Now, this point brings me to a heartbreaking story of a father, a mother, and 2 children. Now, this family was well off, living happily and worry-free, until they weren't. A few years after the second child was born, her father tragically died in a car accident, and the mother was left with 2 children, unemployed, and with no help. Well, fortunately, I have parents who do want to be that change. My parents were able to give her clothes, food, and most importantly, just a person for that family to have whenever they needed it. Now, my parents didn't change the world, but they definitely did change hers. Another major reason is eroding work opportunities. The media reports of a growing economy and low employment mask a number of important reasons why homelessness persists and in some areas of the country is worsening. And I bet we can all relate to that considering our current situation and the unemployment rate in this country, which is 6.7%. Some other reasons this issue continues to persist is the lack of affordable health care. I know, you're all probably sitting there very shocked. America is one of the only countries in the world without it. Like, come on, America. You can do it. I believe in you. Now, more bitter topics, which are domestic violence, mental illness, and addiction. The relationship between addiction and homelessness is the one we will get more into. The relationship between the two is one that is incredibly complex and extremely controversial. While rates of alcohol and drug abuse are disproportionately high among the homeless population, the increase in homelessness cannot be explained simply by addiction alone. Many people who are addicted to alcohol and drugs never do become homeless, but people who are poor and addicted are clearly at increased risk of homelessness. And addiction does increase the risk of displacement for the precariously housed. In the absence of appropriate treatment, it may doom one's chances of getting housing once on the streets. Now, have you maybe changed your mind just a little itty bit? If not, well, you can't change everyone's mind. Am I right or am I right? No? Okay, tough crowd. Now, homelessness impacts all of us, whether or not we experience it ourselves. Homelessness is a public health problem. Without their own housing and the social status to use restrooms in businesses or other public places, people who are homeless have to relieve themselves outside. Now, these people lack access to health care, as I mentioned earlier, and often have chronic illnesses which are made worse by tough living conditions, sleeping outside in all weather, eating cheap, starchy foods, and being in close quarters at social service agencies with other unhealthy people. Now, homelessness is also an economic issue. People without housing are high consumers of public resources and generate expense rather than income for the community. Studies show that it can cost the community as much as $23,000 for a person to be chronically homeless for 1 year. That is paying for shelter stays, jail time, emergency room visits, and other expenses. Most importantly, homelessness is a human tragedy. Our own community members live in tents and under bridges, vulnerable to inclement weather and violence, stripped of dignity and our collective respect, which isn't right, because homeless people are still people. I studied alongside a homeless kid while I was in elementary school, and I can tell you, he was just like every other kid there. The only difference was he just didn't have a place to call home. Now, this far in, you're probably sitting there confused, asking yourself, why aren't other people helping, and what can I do to help? Well, why don't other people help? It's simply because, for many people, ignoring the homeless is easier to do than acknowledging them. Mark Horvath, founder of the video blog Invisible People, summarizes it best. He says, "It's not that people are bad, but if we make eye contact or engage in conversation, then we have to admit they exist and that we might have a basic human need to care. But it's so much easier to simply close our eyes and shield our hearts to their existence." Now, due to the constant denial the homeless receive when asking for help, most admit to feeling invisible to the people around them. Poverty is an ugly reality, and when confronted with it, any of us choose to look away, not wanting to accept a reality that doesn't align with our own. Okay? This is where you come in. How can you be that change? Well, I can tell you right now, it doesn't take as much as you think. Now, before I keep going, I have a story and a quick reminder. So, the important thing to remember is that most of chronically ill homeless people suffer from a mental or physical disorder. They are less likely than others to find themselves a job and get the help they need on their own. They need more encouragement than others might to get themselves to a better place. While many ignore the homeless because they feel giving them money is a handout, what they truly need is to be recognized as people who need a hand up to get out of poverty. I once met a man while I was walking down the street in Florida. He was asking for money. And, I pulled out a few bills and without thinking and gave them to him. And of course I thought I was going to give him the money and carry on with my business, as would he. But that didn't turn out to be the case. He stopped and asked about me and told me I stood out to him because I didn't just give him money. I told him to stay strong and to keep trying his best, and that's more than a lot of people are willing to do. He had told me, a 13-year-old girl at the time, that those couple of words changed his life. And for me, he wouldn't give up. And you know what? He didn't. He got a job and he's actually doing a lot better now. Now, how can you help? To help the homeless, instead of giving them spare change, buy them a cup of coffee, food, or bottled water. This takes the burden off knowing where your money actually ends up and shows the individual you care enough to take the time to out of your day to stand in line and place an order rather than just digging through your change. You taking the time out can help them feel like they matter and provide the encouragement they need to continue in the right direction. Making direct eye contact, smiling at them, offering words of encouragement are ways you can make a positive impact on them. And other than that, just speak out, encourage others to go help, and encourage them to encourage others. And most importantly, speak for those who have been silenced. The homeless community has been silenced for too long, and enough is enough. Be their voice and be the person that gives them their voice back. Now, how is everyone feeling about being those few caring people who will change the world? Good? Because I know I am. Homelessness is an issue that is nationwide, but it's not one that is unfixable. There are endless reasons to why someone can end up in that situation, and there are endless ways you can get them out of it. The homeless community has been silenced and ignored for too long. It's time to finally say that enough is enough. And no more just sitting and listening. Go be those caring people and go change the world. Thank you.